Well, welcome back. Welcome anew to the Further Faster podcast. I'm Joseph McClendon III, and I'll be your host, your guide, and maybe even your mentor on this leg of your journey to become exactly what the name implies, and that is to go further faster in becoming more wealthy. And around here, remember, wealthy means to be healthy, happy, and financially abundant. And you can't see me below my head right now, but below here, I am fidgeting in my seat because I'm so excited to bring to you today's subject, which in my opinion is the most or one of the most important aspects of life itself. And that is the electricity that runs through you. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that everything that we do, every cell in our body is powered by electricity. And my guests today, James Law and Jim Girard, are absolutely experts at this subject. And they're going to show you exactly how to utilize the electricity that goes through your system, and more importantly, how to utilize a piece of technology that is going to enhance that life force inside of you. So grab a pad and paper, and you might as well grab a helmet as well, because your head's going to explode on this. And I'll be right back with the two Jims. Well, welcome back. And I want to share with you, it's been about 5, maybe 6 years ago, I was getting ready to go on stage at an event. There were almost 16,000 people out there in the audience. And it was with my dear friend, my business partner, Tony Robbins. And it was my day to go on stage. And I walked into the green room right before to go on stage. And there was this machine. And it was glowing and it was kind of giving off sparks and everything. And I go, what the heck is that? And my friend said, well, that's called a BioCharger. And I go, well, what is? And then I remembered that Tony had called me a few weeks before and he goes, dude, you got to experience this thing. And I thought, okay, well, let me try this thing out. And I got to be honest with you, standing next to this thing, I actually felt energy. And if you've been around me, you know I got a lot of energy, but I felt energy. And since then, I always wanted to get one, and I recently did. I'm going to share with you more about it. But more than that, the greatest part about it is I have two of the experts here that are going to share with you what this machine is, why it's so important, and how it's going to change your life. My guests are James Law and Jim Girard. Gentlemen, welcome to the Further Faster podcast.
Thank you, Joseph. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Fantastic. Share with us a little bit about yourselves and this amazing piece of technology, why it's so important and what it does.
Sure. Well, first off, I'm Jim Law. I'm the CEO and a partner with Jim and one other technology partner of ours. We have one product. It's the BioCharger. And my background was in high technology. Back in the 80s, I was with Apple Computer and followed Steve Jobs to Next Computer, after that. And had more of an entrepreneurial spirit. And I actually had developed a couple of businesses that we built up and sold. And I have to say, Joseph, it was about 32 years ago that I think you and I saw you for the first time. It was a Tony event in 1992.
Wow.
And so coming up on 32 years. And I'll never forget, you had dreadlocks almost down to your ass.
Yes, exactly. I was making the transition from being a musician to being doing what I do now.
Well, you did well in both. But it was back then, and actually, through Tony's help, that I wanted more, and I became more focused. And fast forward 25 years, I'd had 2 successful ventures, both of them we built up and sold to public companies, and I'm kind of wondering what to do next. And I have a son who's turning 21, and he was trying to figure out his future. And I said, I got the answer. We'll go to Date with Destiny. And it was, again, 25 years, almost to the day of when I originally went. It was at that event that I learned about Tony's challenge with mercury toxicity.
Right, sure.
And we had just gotten this little thing going with the BioCharger. And basically, Jim and I met through our kids in school. Jim is an inventor. He'll tell you more about it. But he had developed a technology using nothing newer than 100-year-old technology to create this device, which, looked like the flux capacitor in Back to the Future. But the more I got to know and be able to follow him, it actually had a really positive effect on people that used it. And so together, we decided to join forces and realized it wasn't commercially viable. But my background in technology and a couple of the partners, engineering and software developers that I had worked with in prior ventures, got excited, and we all sat around Jim and said, okay, how do we? By the way, anything that comes to these energies or how it affects the cells, Jim is always the smartest guy in the room. You'll figure that out real quickly here. But he was fascinating, and what we did was surround him so that we can understand, first off, what it did, and essentially how it did it, and then tried to say, okay, how would Rife and Tesla and some of these people that were doing this technology, what would they do today? And so we developed a platform called the BioCharger, and essentially what it does is it replicates 4 essential energies that are vital to our health and wellness that exist in nature. But because we spend 93% of our time indoors on average, fact check me on that, we're not exposed to it. And instead, we're bombarded by man-made energies that I think we can all agree are not the best. And we've heard some of your podcasts on water and your recognition of energy is so vital. That's the missing component in many of our health and wellness at the cellular level. So the BioCharger replicates and amplifies those energies so that by sitting next to it for 15 minutes, our bodies are able to absorb this energy in a biocompatible way, increasing cellular voltage and allowing our bodies to heal themselves, which ultimately is what they're designed to do.
Spectacular. Well, if Jim is the smartest guy in the room, I'm definitely the dumbest guy in the room, because I would, first off, thank you so much for that explanation of it. Jim, share with us a little bit about, where this came from, what made you start to take a look at it in this way? Because with your scientific background, what made you go, this is something that I can use to change and help people?
Yeah, so my journey started in the late 80s. I had a landscaping company, going to college, going to take applied math, and start coming down with alopecia. So alopecia is you just lose parts of your hair, and started looking at my environment. My diet first, and cleaned up my diet a little bit. And then I started looking at my environment and realized I was exposed to all these fertilizers and stuff and pesticides and things like that may have contributed to that. So I went to an organic farm convention to learn a little bit more about organic farming. And there I first heard about Nikola Tesla. So I began, not the car guy, but the inventor guy. And began to experiment with some of his work that he was doing. Just became very fascinated with this whole idea of electricity, building different types of Tesla coils and things like that. And then I came across a book called The Secret of Life by a guy named George Lakhovsky, who had 20,000 systems that were worldwide, and it was documented in this book called The Waves That Heal, the benefits that were associated with it. They had doctors, surgeons, universities, world congresses that were investigating it. And as I started digging deeper, I found all these other inventors, Strong, Royal Rife, even Marconi was doing experiments in energy. And then as I looked even further and found out there were 25,000 practitioners that turned the last century was using some form of energy medicine, and actually came across the electrical therapy handbook at Purdue University. They had over 2,000 pages of different devices. So I started building and experimenting with some of these earlier designs and started having some really good results with it. And next thing I know, people coaxed me in to start to make them. So I started selling my first version in 1993. And it was, as Jim mentioned, spark gap technology, which was 1890 technology. And but then I kept on evolving it over the years. I wanted to add other features of some of these other researchers that we're doing with radio variable frequencies and harmonics. So began to evolve the system over time. And then in 2013, when Jim and I partnered up, I was still in the Flintstones age. I was using 1920 technology and, just all analog with function generators and things like that. And, they brought me into this 21st century. And as I started to delve deeper into understanding the mechanisms of action and things like that, I found that, there's been a big, huge resurgence into this whole technology, even through mainstream, but they're using it for all sorts of different applications for it. Mm-hmm. So it's an exciting time to really go back to the roots of we are really electric. Our bodies are electric, our brains are electric, our nervous system's electric, chemistry is electric, cells are electric, and cells functions electrically. So, it all really does make sense. And it's really driven by that energy that, first and foremost starts with lightning discharges. I was listening to one of your podcasts and you were talking about how does water ionize itself, or how does nature ionize it? And really, it's there are 100 lightning strikes that occur in every single second on the planet, and it's energizing the upper atmosphere that you can actually take a wire and go up a couple hundred feet and measure a difference of potential, tens of thousands of volts up to hundreds of thousands of volts. That, the water's, as it's moving, traveling, it electrically charges it. But it's really that energy that's provided, not only just the electric field, but there's the radio frequency, the harmonics that they emit. So each spark is generating the wide ranges of frequencies and harmonics. So it isn't just a matter of electric and magnetic, but there's also a vibrational component to it. So, there's, and then also that light component. So, the idea of what we were trying to do is really mimic what happens in nature. Whether it's the Earth's magnetic field as it's spinning, that generates that magnetic field that drives our compass, or the visible light component that we get from sunlight and natural light. It's all about what we used to get in nature, and nowadays we spend too much time in not getting it.
Yeah, wow. And Joseph, just, again, somebody I know both you and I admire is Dr. Jerry Tennant. I mean, he's
absolutely. I was going to bring it up. Yeah.
Yeah. And people haven't read Healing is Voltage. They should be ready for it, because there's a lot to it. But what he did was, if you look at CDC's reporting today, that 5 years ago, when we first really were digging into this, 4 in 10 American adults had at least one form of chronic disease, which
correct.
I fell off my chair. Now last year, that's increased to 6 in 10. Now 4 in 10 American adults have 2 or more chronic diseases. The further away we get from nature, the sicker we become. Factoid. I mean, and then if you look at that and say, okay, so Dr. Tennant studied 80 forms of chronic disease and found one common characteristic: inadequate cellular voltage. And there are ways to create more energy from it, but the two most important characteristics of healthy cells are uptaking nutrients and dealing with toxicity. And without adequate voltage, your cells can't make perfect new cells. They can't regenerate that. Those capabilities diminish. So while we're sitting here, our bodies are manufacturing 3 to 4 million cells per second, but without adequate energy, they're not perfect new cells, and that's how our health diminishes.
So those cells are being created, and they're in a weakened state just from the time that they're being created. That's amazing.
Yep.
Well, a couple things that because there's so much that everybody needs to know, and then towards the end here, we're going to share with how people can get a hold of you and learn more and get one of these machines, if you will. Tell us a little bit about this, maybe not the specifics of each cell, but how each cell, maybe like your liver cells versus your kidney cells versus your brain cells, each of them has its own electrical signal or electrical voltage signal. Because I know on my machine, there's over 1,000 different programs there, 1,000 different ones. And so talk a little bit more about how each one of those programs is specifically designed to go to a specific area of one's body.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the idea is our cells, everything vibrates in life, whether it's molecules or cells or even elements vibrate. And so if you've ever had an MRI, magnetic resonant imaging, it's based off of the idea of magnetic resonant spectrum. So the idea that physics started outlining this in the early 20s, that every cell vibrates within a certain spectrum of frequencies. It's from low kilohertz all the way up to 20 gigahertz. So if you want to find any cell somewhere, they're going to vibrate within that spectrum. And then above and beyond that is what they call the molecular band spectrum. So every molecule vibrates within this spectrum, which is from 20 gigahertz up through infrared, far infrared, near infrared, up to visible light. And then visible light is where all elements are vibrating. So in physics class, it's another thing when they measure the light emissions from different elements. So each element has its own unique wavelength spectrum of frequencies that are characteristic for each element, and all of them are different. So you can identify different elements by their wave spectrum of frequencies. So atoms are now vibrating throughout this whole spectrum from zero to visible light. So what happens is if you generate the right frequency, you can transfer energy. So if you imagine in physics or music class, if you had two tuning forks of the same pitch, if I strike one, the other one starts to vibrate through sympathetic vibration, and I can actually turn that one off, and the other one will continue to vibrate. Same thing on a radio. So if I set my car radio station at, say, 5:40 a.m., I have this receiver. What literally has happened is that the antenna is vibrating at 540 kilohertz. And then I have a receiver that's tuned to that frequency. And when it's tuned to the right frequency, I can pick up that signal from the radio. And that's based off the idea of resonance, again, that they're vibrating in tune. And if I change that frequency of my receiver to something else, I don't pick it up, even though I can get right next to it. I still won't pick it up. But if I build another transmitter, now I can pick up that station. So if you imagine your cell's a one-band radio receiver or a tuning fork, and you generate the right radio station, you can transfer energy into the cell to help improve these healthy cellular functions. And so with the BioCharger, we're producing hundreds of thousands of harmonics that span that entire spectrum, that covers that whole molecular, that covers the entire magnetic resonance spectrum, as well as the entirety of the molecular spectrum, as well as that visible light spectrum. So you begin to resonate all those different areas. Well, we're generating hundreds of thousands in a sea of quadrillions of frequencies. Wow. So what we're doing with recipes, and what's one of the secret sauces of the BioCharger, is we figured out how to do variable frequencies and harmonics. So at any one time, we can generate unique sets of hundreds of thousands of harmonics. So much like in music, when you have two different notes and you can generate a harmony or harmonic, if I change one of those notes, I generate different harmonies or harmonics. So what we do with the BioCharger is we have a carrier wave that is one note, and then we vary it with a different note. We modulate it, and it generates unique sets of hundreds of thousands of harmonics that you can predict, calculate, and determine. And if you know where things are vibrating at, now you can target for particular outcomes, which is what we do. So understanding how things vibrate, and you can look at it as many different ways that they look at it, with the different resonances and things like that. But that's really what we target. And that works differently than the magnetic field and the electric field that we generate, which really works with more of the cell itself and how the cell gates, the cell membrane gates, and how it affects the positive, negative charges surrounding the cell membrane. That's where magnetic electric fields have their special sauce. That's one of the four energies that we produce besides that frequencies and harmonics.
Well, I thank God for the big brain on people like you, because, it's like, I always say to people, look, you don't have to understand everything in order to get the results. We don't have to understand exactly how electricity works to go over there and hit the switch and get the result. And so, again, I thank God for people like you that have done the research and know exactly what you're talking about. If I was to simplify, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and I say this, I say this a lot, and I want to hear from somebody who knows better, that when we talk about frequencies, we're talking about how often something vibrates, correct? How often, the amount of times that tuning fork vibrates, if you will, that is the frequency on what it is. And
or faster, it's like a wavelength too. It's it's the number of cycles per second is really what frequencies means. It's cycles per second.
Exactly. In those cycles, because a lot of people think of frequencies as something that's, like a tone or something like that, which is true. But when it comes, the reason I say this is that, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, what you just talked about is a broad spectrum. You can go in with the machine and kind of get everything, but then you can also dial it into the very specific signature or frequencies of that particular cell, whether it's a liver cell or an eye cell or whatever, that is going to be optimal.
Yeah.
Or parasite that, yes, come on, preach, preacher, come on, talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So that's the beauty of everything has its unique signature. And by targeting it like you're suggesting there, that's really the power of what we created with it, is being able to create that variable frequencies and harmonics with that voltage and magnetic field and the light portion of it. So all those in conjunction together, and again mimicking nature. So with that plasma or electric discharge, similar to nature with lightning, generating those unique sets of hundreds of thousands of harmonics. So we get it in nature. So as I mentioned earlier, every spark has hundreds of thousands of harmonics. Every lightning strike, you have 100 of those every second. Now, every other planet's doing the same thing. The sun, what we call solar flares or solar storms, are nothing but atmospheric lightning discharges that are occurring on the sun that are so strong that can disrupt communication here 92 million miles away. And that's just a small part of what the rest of the universe produces, what we call cosmic rays. So we used to be bathed in that outside when we used to wake up at sunrise. We tended our fields and got our heat and lumber, build our houses and stuff. So we were outside the entire time.
That is so beautiful. And I love the saying that you said, the further away we get from nature, the further away we get from our own health and the things that are supposed to happen. We're going to take a really short break. And when we come back, I'd like for you to please share with us not just a little bit more about it, but more specifically, I'm going to share with you some of my results. And if you would, please maybe share some of the results that you've gotten with other people as well.
Sure.
So again, we'll be right back with Jim and the BioCharger. Hey, what's good? It's me, Joseph McClendon III, and let me get real with you just for a second. Now, you've probably heard me talk about this before, something that I call the thieves of our dreams. Procrastination, hesitation, fear of failure, fear of success, self-doubt, self-loathing, imposter syndrome, and fear of rejection. Well, let me ask you a question. What if you could not only retrain your brain and your nervous system to automatically default to your absolute best thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, but you could also do the same for others that are going through difficult times and challenges in their own lives and things that are stopping them from creating the life of their desires? Well, this is what I call neuroencoding. And at the risk of sounding arrogant, these are the same tools, methods, and strategies in neuroscience that I've used to operate in the upper 5% of all of my own businesses, especially as a coach, a speaker, and a presenter for the last 30 plus years. The Neuroencoding Institute provides you with the knowledge, the tools, and unmatched support to become a certified neuroencoding specialist and guide you to the life of wealthiness. And remember, wealthy means to be healthy, happy, and financially abundant. Go to neuroencoding.com to speak to an enrollment specialist today, and I look forward to serving you at the highest level.
You're enjoying this episode on Angel Phoenix Productions Podcast Network. To explore a complete lineup of quality programs and media production services, head on over to angelphoenix.com or like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Angel Phoenix Productions.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back to the Further Faster podcast. My guests today are Jim Girard and Jim Law, representing the BioCharger. And it's an amazing piece of technology. I have one myself in my own home. And when we stopped, we talked about the different frequencies and different things that where they can dial this machine into specifics of the specific cells. And I'll start off by sharing with you a little bit about my results. And I'd like for you guys to talk a little bit more, maybe explain a little bit more how I got these results. Because I've had my machine now for a little, almost a month now. And one of the greatest parts about your company, I want to say, is that it comes along with consultation, support, somebody that was, to talk to me and go, okay, what are you looking to change? What do your reasons for having this? And in my case, it was Marilyn. Shout out to her. And she helped me. My biggest issues were I had digestive challenges. I always have. I had some injuries when I was younger. And I also had sleep challenges. And I'm just going to kind of jump to the chase and just say both of those are at least 50% better now following the program on those. I am pretty religious about using it. And it is, as I look at it now, these are my words. It's like I have my own sun in my house. I have the sun that's giving off, everything that my body needs in my house. It takes me no more than 15, 20 minutes a day. Share with us a little bit more maybe about how the machine works in those 15 minutes and any more information you can, and maybe some results that other people have gotten as well.
Sure. As you can tell, I'll keep it at a high level. Jim can go deep. So one of the things that's unique about the BioCharger is we all recognize the need for energy, and that there are scientific and medical studies. By the way, the BioCharger is not a medical device. It's a health optimization platform. It's manufactured in the U.S. in an ISO 9001 certified facility. We have a full support team, as Joseph mentioned. So we take great pride in not only what the product can do, but that what we can do together with the product to help every client optimize it for their use. And the beauty of that is that because of, we talked about these, we call them recipes, which are energy and frequency programs that are designed for specific outcomes, we can help people overcome challenges that they've been dealing with for a while because we have the ability, there are references, many databases, some are medical, some are more scientific, that associate any kind of condition with a certain range of frequencies. And that extends beyond the human cells, that extends to, as we mentioned, parasites or, some of the pathogens that are around. And so the ability to create these recipes and target those specific conditions have profound effects when you can target that. Now, the BioCharger is the only system that stacks all four energy types. So there's great, light devices, there's great PEMF devices, there are not many voltage-based devices, there's some microcurrent devices, and then, some frequency-based, more and more. But what's unique about the BioCharger is that it stacks all of those together. So when you do an application or a 15-minute session, you're really giving your body, as Jim described in cellular function, the PEMF fields have a different effect on the cell membrane than electric fields have versus vibration versus light. But they all have a complementary effect. And so you get the benefit of that. I think the other magic about it, and people, once they get it, realize this, is that you don't have to, you can just, stack on top of that. If you like to meditate or do breath work, right, or, have your morning, just do your morning journaling. You can sit around it comfortably and it does the work for you. So you don't have to ingest anything or exert yourself. You can also have up to 4 or 5 people with you.
Absolutely.
And that's profound. And we found a lot of our clients are businesses that offer it as a service for others, whether they're med spas or gyms or recovery labs or biohacking centers. We're in all of those. And it builds that sense of community. So people look at it like the modern day campfire almost.
No, I love that.
Specific examples. I mean, part of the reason that we reconnected, Joseph, is because it had such a profound effect on Tony's health. And
yes.
Back in 2018, and I mean, to be able to serve that guy who had such an impact on my life, I would have never imagined that. But as a result of that, and really, that's all I wanted to do was to give back to him. Was he started to say, well, I got to have my platinum partners. I got to have my followers learn more about this. And now we're in events around the world, as you know. You're on stage, and so there's been a tremendous amount of great stories, success stories built around that. And people, again, not a medical device, but we can help. We can say with with absolute certainty that the BioCharger is a common denominator in many, many, many success stories of people who in one way or another feel like they've been let down by the medical system or have lost hope. And to see that come back and to see people make that change and transition. And one of them that you know very well, Siri Lindley, who
absolutely, oh gosh, I was going to say that. Yes,
yeah, she was on her deathbed and was doing everything possible, and somehow the BioCharger showed up, and about 30 days later, things miraculously started to really improve in her condition. And then we have super athletes that have achieved new personal bests. It's all over, but for all of us, we all need more energy in our life. We're all surrounded by toxins, those we can see, those that we can't. Having ability to just logically, if we're able to give our body the energy it needs to function, and there's a way to do that, and we know that we're depleted of it today, why wouldn't you? And there's no limit.
There's no limit, and there's nothing else out there like that. And the truth of the matter is, to me, is that the body knows how to heal itself. Mm-hmm. You don't have to, you want to cut yourself, you don't have to go heal and tell it to heal. It knows what to do. Mm-hmm. But if it doesn't have the fundamental energy to be able to do that, in this case, energy is electricity, then it can't perform at its best. Mm-hmm. And just that alone, you said something earlier, Jim, you said the logic behind it, the logic. Yeah. That alone says it all. And so, when I look at this technology, for lack of a better term, this technology that needs to be, and it's the reason why we're having this conversation right now, and I'm doing my little part, if you will, to get it to as many people as possible, to get people to kind of recognize, there's not, in my opinion, there's not one disease, whether it's hypertension, whether it's diabetes or anything like that, does not involve that the body does not have the energy to heal it. And this is a way of giving it the energy. And so I want to give you guys the last word, if you will. Please share with people, A, how they can get a hold of you, B, how they can get one of these machines. And for themselves, even because I look at, I talk to my friends, is listen, get one, and you guys, as you said earlier, get one and you guys sit around it all together. Because I know, like when I do seminars, you guys are in the back room with that thing on and you're energizing everybody else. So tell everybody how we can find you and how they can get one of these machines, how they can go and at least experience one. Lastly, before I turn it back to you, is this. Oh gosh, well, first I'm just going to ask this. Will you please come back? Because there's so much more that I want to talk about.
We would love to.
And one of those is just in the essence of time is how that thing works, because it's not just you're assuming that it's work. You literally feel it. It'll light up a light bulb. So tell everybody how we can find you, how they can get a machine of their own.
Sure. Just something that you said in a different way, but resonated with me, is that the power that creates the body is the power that heals the body. And that really, kind of epitomizes part of what the BioCharger is able to do, is to help your body do what it's designed to do. Any of your viewers or listeners that would like to try a complimentary BioCharger session can do so by going to biocharger.com, and there's a contact us form, and just request a demo, and we'll find a location near you and coordinate for you to be able to go out and actually experience it yourself. Compliments of Joseph. And if you're interested in purchasing, if you have a business, although still 70% of our clients are individuals of all, we're in 42 countries outside the U.S., just regular folks and everywhere in between. So if you go to biocharger.com and want to finance one for your business, we have, for $350 a month. The product sells, the BioCharger sells for $17,000 all in, or $16,990. But we have many, many businesses internationally that offer sessions. So there's ways to get access to it without having to invest in one. Of course, we'd love you to invest in one. It will give you great support and service as we have with Joseph and the rest of our clients. But if you want to just find a place to use one, we'll help you with that as well.
Absolutely. And do not take that lightly, ladies and gentlemen. This is our gift to you. Go and see this, because if you're not doing something to help yourself, what my mom used to always say, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And so if you're not doing something to service your body and being able to help it give you what it needs to help you go, wait for it, further, faster, then you are seriously robbing yourself of an opportunity. Go to biocharger.com and check this out. Get yourself a session. And I'm going to say this again, and two things. Number one, please come back, guys. Can we do this again?
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. And then secondly, guys, this is not unicorns and crystals and rainbows. This is the real deal. This is modern technology that duplicates, and in my opinion, honestly, even enhances, because you can only be out in the sun for so much time. We got stuff to do. You got to get the kids from soccer. You got all that stuff to do. You don't have time to do that. I'm a really busy person, but I got 15 minutes a day to go up there and charge my body. And I am a living proof and an example of what is possible to it. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. And please, again, everybody, make sure that you go, at the very least, check it out. You owe it to yourself to see how you function at least once in your life at your absolute optimum. And lastly, I'm going to say that life is always exactly what you dare to make it. And fortune, whatever you decide fortune is. Around here, fortune we call being wealthy, healthy, happy, and financially abundant. Fortune favors the bold. I'm Joseph McClendon III. My guests have been Jim and Jim from the BioChargers, and we'll see you at the top.
This podcast was a production of Angel Phoenix Productions. Explore more episodes of this show or other great shows on the Angel Phoenix Podcast Network by visiting angelphoenix.com. The views expressed in this show do not necessarily represent those of Angel Phoenix Productions or its advertisers, and may contain language that's unsuitable for younger listeners.